millionaire abandoned his beloved out of pride when he discovered she was a waitress. 20 years later, he froze seeing her as a customer, accompanied in a luxury restaurant. He approached. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air as Adam Bell entered the small, bustling café on a cold Chicago morning. He wasn't supposed to be there. He usually ordered coffee from his penthouse, where his assistant ensured that his favorite Colombian roast was always ready. But something about that day, or maybe sheer boredom, made him walk into the quaint corner cafe called Bella Brews, dressed in a tailored black coat, with shoes polished to perfection. Adam stood out amidst the cozy, mismatched chairs and the chatter of regulars discussing their morning routines. His sharp blue eyes scanned the room until they landed on the counter. There she was, Megan Thompson. He didn't know her name yet, but something about her caught his attention. She moved behind the counter with effortless grace, handing a steaming cup to an elderly man with a warm smile. Her auburn hair was pulled into a loose ponytail, and a faint dimple appeared on her left cheek whenever she smiled. There was no jewelry, no expensive watch, no designer bag, just that radiant smile. "Sir, what can I get you?" Her voice was soft but confident, pulling him from his thoughts. Yeah, a black coffee, large." Adam cleared his throat, surprised by his own awkwardness. He was used to giving orders in boardrooms, not fumbling over words with a cafe waitress. "Coming right up," Megan said, turning to the espresso machine. As she prepared the coffee, Adam found himself studying her. She seemed genuinely happy doing a simple job, something he couldn't quite understand. "You don't come here often, do you?" she asked, placing the cup on the counter. "No, I don't really do cafes like this." He reached for his wallet. "Let me guess. Office delivery. Fancy labels, overpriced beans." She grinned, and Adam was momentarily speechless. He wasn't used to people talking to him like that. Playful, unfiltered, something like that, he replied, unable to suppress a chuckle. "How much?" $3, she said. He handed her a crisp $20 bill. "Keep the change." Megan arched an eyebrow. "Generous. Call it a good first impression." He turned to leave but hesitated. "What's your name?" "Megan," she said, her smile softening. "And you?" "Adam Bell." The name didn't seem to register with her. She just nodded. "See you around, Adam." He left the cafe with a strange feeling in his chest. Megan Thompson had treated him like any other customer, not as the heir to Bell Hotels, not as Chicago's golden boy, but simply as Adam. It was unfamiliar, refreshing, and mildly unsettling. The next day, Adam found himself back at Bella Brews. He claimed it was because the coffee was surprisingly good, though he knew better. Megan greeted him with the same friendly smile and a teasing remark about his return to the world of normal coffee drinkers. Day after day, the routine continued. Their conversations became longer, moving beyond coffee preferences to books, movies, and dreams. Megan loved art and wanted to study fashion design one day. She spoke about it with a mixture of longing and resignation, as though it was a distant dream. "So why not go for it?" Adam asked one afternoon as they sat at a small table near the window. She shrugged. "Money, time, life, you know how it is." Adam didn't know. He'd always had everything handed to him, thanks to his father's fortune, but he admired her determination. Weeks passed and the casual conversations turned into subtle flirtations. Adam, the man who had always sought women who wore diamonds and walked on marble floors, was falling for a waitress with coffee stains on her apron and stars in her eyes. One rainy evening, he waited for Megan after her shift. When she stepped outside, surprised to see him standing there, he simply said, "Let me take you to dinner." Megan hesitated. "I'm not sure I fit into your world." "Then let me step into yours," Adam replied. They ended up at a small Italian restaurant she liked, sharing pasta and stories. For the first time in years, Adam felt like himself, not the persona he'd crafted for society. A few weeks later, Adam took Megan to a charity gala. She wore a simple black dress, far less extravagant than the others around her. But to Adam, she was the most stunning woman there. The night seemed perfect until an acquaintance of his, Charles Whitmore, approached. "Adam, who's this lovely lady?" Charles asked, eyeing Megan with polite curiosity. "This is Megan," Adam said proudly. "My girlfriend." Charles extended a hand. "And what do you do, Megan?" "I work at Bella Brews," she said without hesitation. "I'm a waitress." Charles's smile faltered for a split second. "Oh, that's nice." Adam saw the judgment in his eyes. He felt the weight of the room's stares. The next morning, that feeling lingered, planting a seed of doubt. How would his peers react if he pursued something serious with her? The thought unnerved him, but Megan didn't notice. She was happy, and Adam was too, or at least, he thought Qui was. Adam Bell sat alone in his penthouse that morning, the skyline of Chicago stretching endlessly beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city hummed with life below, oblivious to the turmoil swirling inside him. His coffee sat untouched on the glass table, the once inviting aroma now cold and bitter. The previous night's gala haunted his thoughts. Megan's radiant smile, her genuine laugh, the effortless way she charmed people despite being an outsider in that world. And then came the shift, the polite but unmistakable change in expressions when she mentioned her job, waitress. The word had landed like a crack of thunder in a clear sky. He hadn't considered it a problem before, but the look on Charles Whitmore's face stuck with him. The raised eyebrow, the faint smirk, and later the text message. "Hope you're not seriously investing time in that waitress. People are talking." Adam's jaw tightened as the words burned through his mind. He tapped the phone screen, hovered his thumb over the keyboard to fire back a sharp response, but then thought better of it. What would he even say? Megan's different. She's kind, authentic, and doesn't care about our ridiculous games. But even that felt hollow against the weight of judgment pressing down on him. With a sigh, he deleted the message and rubbed his temples. His phone buzzed again. Megan's name lit up the screen. "Hey," he answered, forcing lightness into his tone. "Hey, stranger. You busy?" "Not really." "Good. Come take a walk with me. The lake looks gorgeous today." He hesitated. His gut told him to decline, to buy himself time to process everything. But her voice, warm, hopeful, was his lifeline to something genuine. "Sure. I'll pick you up in an hour." When Adam arrived at the park, Megan was already there, standing by the water's edge, tossing crumbs of bread to the ducks. Her auburn hair caught the sunlight in fiery waves. She wore a simple olive green jacket and sneakers that had seen better days. But to him, she stood out more than any woman at the gala in their designer gowns and glittering diamonds. "Hey," she greeted him, flashing that familiar, easy smile. "Hey, yourself," he said, kissing her cheek. The warmth of her skin against his lips sent a pang of guilt through him. They walked along the gravel path in silence for a while. Megan broke it, as she often did, with a story about work. How Mr. Johnson, a grumpy regular, swore the cafe's cinnamon rolls were the only reason he hadn't retired to Florida. How Mrs. Lee insisted on bringing her cat to the patio every morning, dressed in tiny costumes that matched the weather. Adam chuckled at all the right moments, but his mind was far from present. Instead, he replayed scenes from the gala, Charles's knowing glances, the murmurs behind champagne flutes, the subtle but unmistakable shift in how people regarded him once they learned who Megan was. He thought he'd outgrown caring about those things. He was wrong. "You're awfully quiet today," Megan said, stopping beneath a willow tree. Her eyes searched his face. "What's going on?" "Just work stuff," he said with a shrug. "The new hotel in Miami. Supply chain issues." "You sure that's it?" "Yeah." He kissed her forehead to punctuate the lie. Megan let it go, but suspicion flickered across her face. The following week, Adam met his father for lunch at Bell Tower, their flagship hotel. Alan Bell was a relic of old wealth, tailored suits, slicked back hair, and a worldview rooted in status and legacy. "So," Alan began, swirling his bourbon, "Charles mentioned your date at the gala." Adam tensed. "Yeah, so, she's different. She's smart, beautiful, and honest," Adam shot back. "That's not what I meant," his father said, voice low. "This family has built its reputation over generations. Appearances matter, Adam. People are wondering what you're doing with a cafe waitress." Adam pushed back his chair with more force than necessary. "I don't give a damn what people think." But he did. His father knew it. Adam left the lunch with the bitter taste of shame in his mouth. That weekend, he invited Megan to dinner at an upscale downtown restaurant. She arrived in a simple navy dress and a shy smile, eyes sparkling with excitement. The hostess raised an eyebrow at Megan's lack of designer accessories, but Megan didn't notice. Adam did. Dinner started well. They laughed, talked, shared bites of pasta, but then came the waiter. "Miss Thompson." The waiter greeted her with surprise. "I know you from Bella Brews." "Yes, you always get the caramel macchiato," Megan said with a friendly smile. The waiter nodded and left. Adam's stomach knotted. The couple seated nearby exchanged curious glances. When they left the restaurant, Adam walked a few steps ahead. Megan jogged to catch up. "Okay," she said, voice tight. "What the hell is going on with you?" "Nothing." "Adam, stop. You've been weird for days." "Just say it." He spun to face her. "This doesn't work, Megan. We don't work." Her breath caught. "What are you talking about?" "You and me. Look at us." He gestured between them. "I run a hotel empire. You serve coffee. It was fun for a while, but we live in different worlds." Megan's eyes filled with tears. "You're serious. I should have seen it sooner," he continued, hating himself more with every word. "But I didn't. Now I do." She stepped back, crossing her arms as if shielding herself. "I loved you. I trusted you." "Yeah, well, that was your mistake," Adam said, his voice breaking. Megan stared at him for a long moment, her tears now forgotten. When she finally spoke, her voice was ice. "One day, Adam Bell, you'll wake up and realize how much you lost. And when that happens, I hope your pride keeps you warm at night." She turned and walked away, shoulders squared, chin high. Adam stood frozen on the sidewalk as rain began to fall. His phone vibrated, another text from Charles. "Told you she didn't belong?" He deleted it and stared into the dark street. 2 hours later, Megan boarded a train to New York with a single suitcase and a heart shattered beyond recognition. As the train rattled through the night, she placed a protective hand over her abdomen. There, beneath her palm, was a life that would forever remind her of the man who had broken her heart. The rain lashed against the windows of Adam Bell's penthouse, the rhythmic tapping a cruel soundtrack to the emptiness of his surroundings. He sat in the dark, cradling a glass of bourbon, the amber liquid catching the occasional flicker of the city lights outside. His mind, however, was miles away, in a small café with the scent of fresh coffee in the air and the echo of a laugh that no longer belonged to him. It had been 2 weeks since Megan left. 2 weeks since he'd stood on that rain-soaked street and watched her walk away. 2 weeks since he'd uttered words that tasted like poison even as they left his lips. He'd convinced himself it was for the best, that she'd never fit into his world, that he'd saved them both from inevitable disappointment. But late at night, when the weight of silence pressed down on him, all he could see was her face, hurt, disbelieving, resigned. He hadn't been back to Bella Brews since. On some mornings, he'd found himself standing at the corner across from the cafe, watching through the window like a stranger. The familiar warmth of the place now felt foreign without her presence. One morning, he'd finally summoned the courage to go in, hoping to see her again, to apologize. He wasn't sure. The barista at the counter had looked at him with faint recognition. "Megan?" Adam had asked, his voice uncertain. The barista had paused while grinding coffee beans. "She left," she said. "Moved to New York. Didn't say when or if she'd be back." The finality of it had struck him like a punch. New York. Gone. Just like that. Now, in the dim glow of his penthouse, he swirled the bourbon and tried to drown the memories, but they were relentless. Megan's laugh, her teasing remarks about his fancy world, the way she'd always stood her ground, even when intimidated by the opulence around her. He slammed the glass onto the table, the sound shattering the quiet. He grabbed his phone and scrolled through his contacts until her name appeared. Megan. He hesitated. What could he say? "Sorry I called you a waitress?" Like it was an insult. "Sorry I cared more about appearances than the only person who made me feel human. Sorry I let my father's voice become my own." He pressed the call button. The call went straight to voicemail. He swallowed hard at the sound of her recorded voice. "Hi, this is Megan. I'm probably sketching designs or lost in a fashion magazine. Leave a message." A beep followed. His mouth opened, but no words came. He hung up. The days blurred into weeks. Adam threw himself into work, attending endless meetings and sealing multi-million-dollar deals with practiced ease. but no amount of expansion plans or revenue reports could silence the gnawing ache in his chest. One afternoon, while reviewing proposals for a new hotel in Los Angeles, his assistant, Olivia, stepped in. "Mr. Bell, you have a lunch meeting with Mr. Whitmore at the Harbor Club." Adam's jaw clenched. He'd avoided Charles since the gala, but canceling would only invite more scrutiny. "Thanks, Olivia, I'll be there." The Harbor Club was crowded as always, its polished floors gleaming under the soft lighting. Charles Whitmore greeted him with a wide smile and a handshake that lingered just a second too long. "Adam," Charles said, gesturing to the seat across from him. "Good to see you. Been lying low, huh?" "Just working," Adam replied, forcing a neutral tone. The waiter arrived to take their orders. Charles barely glanced at the menu before ordering a steak. Rare. Adam ordered a salad. He had no intention of eating. "So," Charles began after the waiter left, "I heard you and the barista are done." Adam's hand tightened around his water glass. "Megan," he corrected through gritted teeth. "Right. Megan. Cute girl. Shame, though, she seemed attached." Adam leaned forward, his voice low. "What exactly are you getting at, Charles?" "Relax," Charles said, lifting his hands. "I'm just saying, these women, they get attached fast, but you made the right call. Can you imagine introducing her to investors? To potential partners? A waitress?" He chuckled as if the absurdity spoke for itself. Adam's stomach turned. He pictured Megan in her apron, handing cups to regulars with a smile, genuinely enjoying their small stories. He thought of the passion with which she described her dream of designing clothes, how her eyes lit up when she talked about fabrics and silhouettes. And then he saw his own reflection in the window behind Charles. The same smug arrogance he'd despised in his father stared back at him. He stood abruptly, the chair legs scraping against the marble floor. "Enjoy your steak, Charles." "Adam," Charles started, but Adam was already gone. Outside, the crisp autumn air hit him like a slap. He loosened his tie and walked without direction, his thoughts racing. He'd thought he'd buried his past with Megan beneath layers of ambition and ego. He was wrong. The shame of what he'd said to her burned deeper now, paired with the realization of what he'd become. A man who prioritized reputation over love. His phone buzzed. A notification from one of his hotel managers in New York. The Midtown property needed his approval for renovations. New York. His heart skipped a beat. Without giving himself time to second guess, he opened a travel app and booked the next flight to JFK. He didn't know what he'd say when found her. Maybe she wouldn't even listen. But if there was one thing he knew now, it was this. He couldn't keep living with the weight of his regret. Megan Thompson stood by the window of her small Manhattan apartment, watching the city pulse with life below. The faint hum of sewing machines filled the room, where sketches of dresses and fabric samples lay scattered across a work table. Her belly, still flat but already precious, was protected by the hand she rested on it. She hadn't cried in days. The tears had run dry during the endless train ride from Chicago. Now there was only resolve. She would build a life here. For herself. For her child. Her phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up and saw Adam's name. A sharp pang hit her chest. She let it go to voicemail, then deleted the message without listening. Turning back to her designs, she inhaled deeply. The past was gone. The future awaited. The city of New York hummed with an energy unlike any other place Adam Bell had known. The streets bustled with determined pedestrians. Taxi horns blared in chaotic symphony, and the towering buildings seemed to whisper stories of ambition and reinvention. Yet, as his black sedan glided through the avenues toward his hotel, Adam's mind was elsewhere, on a woman he hadn't seen in almost 2 years and a truth he couldn't ignore. Megan Thompson was here, in this city, building a life he had once deemed impossible for her, and somewhere in this maze of concrete and dreams, she was raising a child he never knew existed. His child. The revelation had come like a freight train weeks after his drunken, sleepless nights in Chicago. A chance conversation with a former colleague who'd seen Megan at a fashion event in Manhattan. "She looked amazing," the man had said, and she had a daughter with her, teenage girl, spitting image of her mom. Adam had stood frozen in place, the word daughter ricocheting through his mind. Megan had hidden a child from him for nearly 2 decades. His first instinct had been anger. How could she keep something so monumental from him? But that anger had quickly given way to a deeper understanding. She probably never believed he could be a father, and at the time, she would have been right. The car stopped in front of Bell Midtown, one of his flagship properties in New York. The valet opened the door, and Adam stepped into the crisp autumn air. The wind carried the faint scent of roasted nuts from a street cart nearby, mingling with the exhaust of passing cars. He ran a hand through his hair, squared his shoulders, and walked into the lobby. The staff greeted him with a mix of deference and curiosity. Adam hadn't visited the New York property in over a year. Olivia, his assistant, was already waiting by the reception desk. "Welcome, Mr. Bell," she said, handing him a tablet with the day's schedule. "Your meeting with the Midtown team is set for tomorrow morning at 9. "Thanks, Olivia, also." He hesitated. "I need a personal favor discreetly." "Of course," she said without missing a beat. "I need you to find someone for me, Megan Thompson. She's in the fashion industry here, owns a business, I think." Olivia's brows rose slightly, but she simply nodded. "I'll get on it." Adam headed to his suite, but sleep was impossible that night. His thoughts spiraled into the unknown. What did Megan tell their daughter about him? Did Scarlett even know he existed? He imagined knocking on Megan's door, seeing the shock on her face, the anger in her eyes, and then there was the child, his child, someone he'd never held, never known, never even imagined. The guilt settled heavy on his chest, an invisible weight that made breathing difficult. He'd spent years chasing acquisitions, attending galas, ensuring the Bell name remained synonymous with luxury and status, and while he'd meticulously built his empire, he'd missed the most important thing life had given him. 2 days later, Olivia entered his office with a single sheet of paper. "Megan Thompson," she said, placing it on his desk. "Founder of Scarlett Designs, boutique showroom in Soho, mid-level success, but she's gaining traction. There was a write-up about her in New York Style a few months ago. And," she hesitated. "And what?" Adam's voice was taut. "She has a daughter, Scarlett Thompson, 19, studying fashion design at Parsons." Adam exhaled slowly. Scarlett. He let the name settle, the syllables unfamiliar but immediately precious. He stared at the paper, tracing the lines of the address with his finger. "Thanks, Olivia. I'll handle it from here." The cab dropped Adam a block from the showroom. He stood on the corner, staring at the storefront with Scarlett Designs written in elegant black lettering on the glass. Inside, mannequins displayed chic dresses and tailored suits, the kind of designs that exuded confidence and timelessness. Just like Megan. His heart pounded. He wasn't a man prone to nerves, but this moment was different. This was his past and his future, colliding in real time. Taking a breath, he opened the door. A bell tinkled softly overhead. The cool scent of fabric and fresh flowers greeted him. The showroom was minimalist, yet warm. Racks of clothing arranged with precision, sketches pinned to a corkboard in the corner, and a sewing machine humming somewhere beyond the partition. A young woman appeared from behind the counter. Her hair was auburn, falling in loose waves over her shoulders, and her eyes were the exact same shade of hazel that haunted Adam's dreams. "Hi," she said, offering a polite smile. "Can I help you?" Adam's throat tightened. He tried to find words, but they tangled and caught. He couldn't stop staring. The shape of her nose, the slight dimple when she smiled. There was no denying it. This was his daughter. I'm looking for Megan Thompson," he managed. The smile faltered. The girl's gaze sharpened with suspicion. "Who's asking?" "Adam Bell." He extended his hand, then dropped it when she made no move to reciprocate. The name landed like a thunderclap. The girl's eyes widened, then narrowed into icy slits. Her jaw tightened, her entire posture shifting into defensive mode. "You're that Adam Bell," she said, voice low. "Yes, I think we need to talk." Scarlett folded her arms. "You're about 19 years too late for that." The door behind her opened, and Megan stepped out. She wore fitted jeans and a crisp white blouse, her hair pulled back into a casual bun. She froze mid-step when her eyes met Adam's. "Adam?" The single word was a mixture of disbelief and dread. His heart lurched. "Megan." Scarlett looked between them, confusion darkening her expression. Megan's face paled. Adam swallowed hard. Every carefully rehearsed line evaporated in the electric tension. "I'm here for both of you," Adam said finally. Megan's lips parted, but no words came. Scarlett turned away with a muttered, "Unbelievable." The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Outside, the city's noise continued unabated, oblivious to the fault line that had just cracked open in the middle of that quiet showroom. The air inside the showroom thickened into a suffocating stillness. Adam Bell stood there, rooted to the spot, watching Megan's face drain of color. The hum of the sewing machine in the back had stopped, leaving only the faint murmur of traffic filtering through the glass windows. Scarlett Thompson, the daughter he'd just met for the first time, stood with her arms crossed and a glare that pierced through him. "Megan," Adam said again, voice low, uncertain. He was a man who negotiated billion-dollar deals without flinching. Yet here, standing in front of the woman he'd once loved and the daughter he'd never known, his confidence unraveled. Megan took a breath, her fingers gripping the edge of the counter as though the solid wood might steady her. "What are you doing here, Adam?" Her voice was calm, but he could hear the undercurrent of tension. "I had to see you," he said. "To see her." His eyes shifted to Scarlett, who gave a derisive huff in response. "Well, you've seen me," Scarlett said, voice sharp. "So go back to your fancy life, mister." "Belle, we're doing just fine without you." Adam's chest tightened. "Scarlett, No," she interrupted. "You don't get to say my name like that. You don't get to just show up and pretend you care." "Scarlett," Megan said gently. "Give us a moment, please." Scarlett hesitated, her eyes locked on her mother's. The unspoken communication passed between them like an invisible tether. With a frustrated shake of her head, she grabbed her jacket from a nearby chair. "I'll be at Hannah's," she muttered, shoving past Adam on her way out. The bell above the door jingled softly as it closed, leaving Megan and Adam alone. Adam rubbed the back of his neck. "She hates me," he said, voice hollow. Megan's expression softened briefly before she steeled herself again. "She doesn't know you enough to hate you. What she knows is what I told her, that you didn't want to be part of our lives." His head snapped up. "I didn't even know she existed." "Megan." "Exactly." Megan crossed her arms, tilting her chin upward. "Because I didn't tell you." "Why?" The word escaped like a punch to the gut. "Why would you keep something like this from me?" Megan exhaled slowly, pressing her lips together as she paced across the showroom floor when she finally stopped. She faced him with the same fiery resolve he remembered from years ago. "Because back then, you cared more about your reputation than you did about me. About us," she said. "I was just a waitress who embarrassed you in front of your elite friends. I was someone you could toss aside when it got inconvenient." Adam flinched at the memory of his cruel words that night. He had been a coward, afraid of judgment, consumed by pride. "I was an idiot," he admitted. "I know that now. An idiot who broke me," Megan said, her voice cracking. "I left Chicago pregnant, alone, scared out of my mind. I worked double shifts, scraped by in a city where I knew no one, all while trying to build a life for Scarlett. And you," her eyes glistened with unshed tears, "you went back to your penthouse, your business deals, your parties. Why would I have ever believed you'd care?" Adam's knees weakened under the weight of her words. "If I'd known," he started, but the sentence withered before he could finish. "You didn't know because I didn't trust you," Megan said, "and I was right not to." Silence settled between them, broken only by the faint tick of the clock on the wall. "Does she know?" Adam asked softly. Megan hesitated. "She knows your name. She knows you're rich. And she knows that when I told you I was a waitress, you called me unworthy." She let out a bitter laugh. "Trust me, she has no interest in playing happy family." Adam closed his eyes for a moment, shame coursing through him. "I don't want to disrupt your lives. I just want a chance to know her." Megan's gaze softened, and for a fleeting second, the walls around her heart seemed to crack. But then she straightened. "That's not up to me anymore," she said. "She's 19. She's the one you need to convince." Adam gave a small nod. "Okay," he said. "Then I'll wait, for as long as it takes." The next morning, Adam sat at a diner near the hotel, his coffee untouched as he scrolled through photos of Scarlett designs on his phone. The articles praised Megan's vision, her bold yet timeless designs that resonated with modern women. There was even a profile that mentioned Scarlett, describing her as a promising young designer following in her mother's footsteps. Adam's heart clenched. He had missed everything. Scarlett's first steps, her first words, her birthdays. The thought brought a sting of regret so sharp it almost took his breath away. His phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. Meeting with Midtown team confirmed for 10 a.m. He responded with a quick thumbs up, then paused. He typed another message. Find out Scarlett Thompson's class schedule at Parsons. I want to know when I can find her. He hit send before guilt could dissuade him. Across town, Megan sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand. Caleb Edwards leaned against the counter behind her, his expression unreadable. He's back, she said softly. Caleb crossed his arms. And what does he want? To meet Scarlett. Caleb's jaw tightened. After all this time, Megan nodded. I told him it was her choice. Caleb ran a hand through his hair. I don't like this, Meg. You built a life without him, a good one. What if he tries to, I don't know, buy her affection? He's got the resources. Megan rubbed her temples. I know, but she's not a kid anymore. She deserves the chance to make that decision. Caleb sighed. I just don't want to see either of you hurt again. Megan gave a sad smile. Neither do I. Her phone buzzed. A message from Scarlett. Mom, I ran into him. He said he wants to talk. What should I do? Megan's thumb hovered over the keyboard. She took a deep breath and typed back. It's your call, sweetheart. Just remember who you are. Adam stood outside Parsons that afternoon, heart racing. Students poured out of the building, laughing, chatting, rushing to their next destinations. And then he saw her, Scarlett, walking toward him with her backpack slung over one shoulder and her jaw set. She stopped a few feet away, eyes guarded. You again? She said flatly. Yeah, Adam replied. Me again. What do you want? Adam took a deep breath. A chance to explain, to listen, to try. Scarlett studied him for a long moment. Then, with a sigh, she gestured to a bench nearby. Fine, she said. But don't expect me to go easy on you. Adam managed a faint smile. I wouldn't dare. As they sat down, he realized this was the moment that could change everything, or leave him with nothing. And for the first time in his life, the outcome truly terrified him. The autumn sun cast a golden glow across the benches outside Parsons, but Adam Bell barely noticed. His heart pounded with a mixture of anxiety and hope as he sat beside Scarlett Thompson, his daughter, though the words still felt foreign and too big to hold in his mind. She sat with her arms crossed, her expression guarded, hazel eyes sharp with skepticism. So, Scarlett said after a long silence, you're here, after 19 years. Why now? Adam rubbed his palms against his jeans, his usual confidence, the easy charm that closed million-dollar deals, felt like a flimsy disguise here. Because I didn't know you existed until a few weeks ago, he said. Scarlett's lips twisted into a bitter smirk. Convenient? It's the truth, Adam said. I wish I had known sooner. I wish I'd been there for you. Scarlett arched an eyebrow. Would you really? Or would you have just written a check and called it parenting? The question cut deep because it wasn't entirely unfair. Adam had spent most of his adult life believing problems could be solved with money, influence, and the right strategy. But this was different. This was his daughter. I can't change the past, Scarlett, he said, voice tight. I wish I could, but I'm here now. Scarlett leaned back against the bench, tilting her face toward the sun. Her jaw twitched, betraying the emotion she fought to conceal. Mom told me what happened, she said after a moment. How you looked down on her. How you cared more about what your rich friends thought than about her. About us. Adam flinched. I was an arrogant, selfish idiot back then, he admitted. I hurt your mom, and if you hate me for that, I get it. I really do. But I'm not that guy anymore. Scarlett didn't respond. Her silence hung heavy between them as students passed by, their laughter a stark contrast to the tension on the bench. Adam took a shaky breath. I know I have no right to ask for anything, he continued, but I'd like a chance to get to know you. No expectations, just a chance. Scarlett stared at him for a long time. Finally, she uncrossed her arms and stood. I'll think about it, she said, turning on her heel and walking away without another word. Adam sat there long after she disappeared into the crowd, his heart oscillating between hope and dread. Megan Thompson paced her apartment later that evening, her phone buzzing in her palm, as Scarlett's name lit up the screen. "Hey, sweetheart," she answered. "How did it go?" "I talked to him," Scarlett said, her voice flat. "He says he wants to get to know me." Megan's throat tightened. "And how do you feel about that?" "I don't know," Scarlett admitted. He seemed nervous, weirdly human for someone so rich and powerful. Megan allowed herself a faint smile. "He's always been human, Scar. Just not very good at showing it." There was a long pause. "I told him I'd think about it," Scarlett said. "But honestly, I don't know if I want him in my life." "That's your decision to make," Megan said softly. "No pressure from me." "Yeah," Scarlett hesitated. "But part of me is curious." Megan closed her eyes, her heart aching with the complexity of the situation. "Then maybe give him a chance. Just be careful, okay? Always." After hanging up, Megan stood by the window, her thoughts drifting to the man she'd once loved and the scars he'd left. Could people really change? Or was this just another polished act from Adam Bell? The next morning, Adam sat in his hotel suite, staring at his phone. His thumb hovered over Scarlett's number, but he didn't dare call. He knew this had to happen on her terms. The phone buzzed in his hand. A text message popped up. "Hey, I'm free Saturday afternoon if you want to meet for coffee. Just coffee, don't get weird." Adam exhaled, relief washing over him. He typed back, "Sounds perfect, I promise no weirdness." The response came back almost immediately. "We'll see." Adam couldn't stop the grin that spread across his face. Saturday arrived with a crisp breeze and a bright sky. Adam arrived at the café 20 minutes early and chose a table by the window. He tapped his fingers on the table, glancing nervously at the door every few seconds. He hadn't felt this anxious since his first big business pitch at 25. Scarlett walked in exactly at 3 o'clock. She wore ripped jeans, sneakers, and a cropped sweater, her hair falling loose around her shoulders. Adam stood but quickly sat down again when she gave him a wary look. "Hey," he said, smiling. "Hey," she replied, sliding into the chair across from him. "You look like you're about to pass out." "I feel like it," Adam admitted. "This is kind of a big deal for me." Scarlett's lips twitched. "Relax, it's just coffee." They ordered drinks, and when the waitress left, Scarlett toyed with her spoon. "Okay, let's cut to the chase. Why do you suddenly care now?" Adam leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Because you're my daughter, and because when I found out you'd been out there all these years, it hit me like a freight train. I missed everything, and that's on me. I let my pride destroy something good once. I won't make that mistake again." Scarlett watched him carefully. "Mom says you were really mean to her." "I was," he said without hesitation, "and I've regretted it every day since." Scarlett's eyes flicked downward. "She cried a lot when I was little," she said quietly. "I remember her holding me and crying at night. She tried to hide it, but I knew." Adam's throat tightened. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, "for everything I did that made her cry, and for not being there when you needed me." Scarlett swirled the foam in her cappuccino with her spoon. "Why were you like that? So snobby?" Adam gave a humorless laugh. "I was raised to believe that status mattered more than people. My father drilled that into me from the time I was a kid. I bought into it until I met your mom. Did you love her?" Adam's heart ached at the question. "Yeah," he said softly. "More than I knew at the time." Scarlett seemed to accept the answer. She sipped her drink, eyes distant. "I'm not saying I trust you," she said after a while. "But I'll give you a chance, just don't screw it up." Adam smiled, hope flickering in his chest. "I won't. I promise." That night, Scarlett texted Megan. "I met him, he's complicated, but I think I might give him a shot." Megan stared at the message for a long time before responding. "Okay, just remember who you are, sweetheart." Her hands trembled as she set the phone down. Outside, the city lights twinkled, oblivious to the storm brewing in her heart. The weeks that followed were a careful dance, a delicate balance between past wounds and present curiosity. Scarlett Thompson wasn't sure what to make of Adam Bell. He was nothing like the cold, arrogant figure her mother had described from years ago. He was cautious, sometimes awkward, and always overly attentive in a way that suggested he was terrified of saying the wrong thing. She tested him constantly. When they met for coffee, she brought up topics just to gauge his reactions. "So, I work part-time at a thrift store," she said one afternoon, stirring her caramel macchiato. "Pretty low class, huh?" Adam didn't even flinch. "Sounds cool," he said. "Find anything interesting?" Scarlett squinted at him suspiciously. "You're supposed to say it's beneath me and that I should aim higher," Adam chuckled. "I used to think like that. Now I know better." Scarlett took a sip of her drink, watching him over the rim of her cup. "Mom says you're a fast talker, that you can sell anything to anyone." "She's right," Adam said. "But I'm not selling anything to you. I'm just here." Scarlett didn't respond, but something in her posture softened. Megan Thompson tracked the subtle changes in her daughter with growing unease. Scarlett talked about Adam with cautious curiosity. "He asked me about my sketches today," she said one night while scrolling through her phone. "Didn't fake it either, he actually seemed interested." Megan kept her tone light. "He's a charmer, Scar. Always was." Scarlett glanced up. "You don't want me to like him, do you?" Megan hesitated. "I want you to be careful. He's had almost 20 years to be a father and never was." Scarlett frowned. "Because he didn't know about me. That's on you, Mom." The accusation struck hard, though Megan masked the hurt with a tight smile. "I was protecting you," she said. Scarlett stood, grabbing her jacket. "Maybe I didn't need that kind of protection. Maybe I needed a dad." The door slammed behind her. Megan sat in silence, the echo of Scarlett's words reverberating through the room. Adam invited Scarlett to his hotel suite one Saturday afternoon. He hesitated before opening the door, worried it might feel too much like a showcase of wealth. The suite was massive, marble floors, glass walls overlooking Central Park, and furniture that looked more like sculptures than anything functional. When Scarlett stepped inside, her eyes widened. "This place is insane," she said, running her fingers along the polished wood of the dining table. "Seriously? Do you even know where all the rooms are?" Adam laughed. "Barely. I get lost sometimes." Scarlett gave him a skeptical look. "You're lying." "Okay. Fine. I don't get lost. But I do wonder why anyone needs 3 bathrooms when there's only one person living here." Scarlett walked toward the windows, pressing her hands to the cool glass. "So, is this the kind of life you wanted for me?" she asked. Adam joined her, following her gaze across the treetops. "I wanted you to have options," he said. "I grew up thinking money was the answer to everything. Turns out, it doesn't buy the things that actually matter." "Like family?" Scarlett asked softly. "Exactly." Scarlett turned to face him. "Then why did you push Mom away?" Adam's throat tightened. "Because I was scared," he admitted. "Scared of what people would think. Scared of not being enough. Scared of being like my dad." He rubbed his jaw. "I let my pride win, and I lost the best thing that ever happened to me." Scarlett didn't respond immediately, but when she spoke, her voice was gentler. "I don't know if I can forgive you for that," she said. "But I guess we can start with coffee, and maybe pizza." Adam's smile was shaky but genuine. "Deal?" Caleb Edwards noticed the shift before Megan did. He was at the apartment one evening, pouring wine as Megan picked at her salad. "Scarlett's been different lately," he said. Megan sighed. "Yeah, she's curious about Adam." Caleb set the bottle down. "And you're scared she's going to get hurt." Megan met his gaze. "She will get hurt. He only cares about people when they fit into his world, and once the novelty wears off." Caleb covered her hand with his. "You're not fighting Adam, Meg. You're fighting her need to know where she came from." Megan swallowed hard. "What if she decides she likes his world better than ours?" Caleb squeezed her hand. "Then you'll remind her where home really is." Adam and Scarlett's meetings became more frequent. They explored bookstores in the village, where Scarlett teased him mercilessly for his lack of fiction knowledge. They strolled through Central Park while she sketched dresses inspired by passing joggers. Slowly, the walls she'd built began to crack. One day, they passed a street vendor selling hot dogs. Scarlett stopped abruptly. "Okay, confession time," she said. "I've never had one of these." Adam's eyes widened. "Seriously, no hot dogs. That's practically a crime in New York." "Mom always said street food was questionable at best," Scarlett air-quoted dramatically. Well, today we break the rules. Adam bought 2 hot dogs and handed her one. Brace yourself. This will change your life. Scarlett took a cautious bite. Her eyes widened. Okay, I regret nothing. This is amazing. Adam laughed. Sometimes the best things are the simplest. Scarlett wiped mustard from her chin. So, if you hadn't been such a snob, do you think you and Mom would have made it? Adam's smile faded. I like to think so, your mom's. She's tough, smart, the best person I've ever known. I just didn't know how to handle that back then. Do you still love her? Scarlett asked. Adam froze. The answer lodged in his throat. I'll always care about her, he said carefully. Scarlett tilted her head. That wasn't a no. Adam shook his head, chuckling. You ask hard questions. You're the one who showed up after 19 years, buckle up, Dad. The word hit him like a jolt of electricity. She hadn't said it sarcastically. She'd just said it. Did you just call me Dad? He asked. Scarlett flushed. No, I mean, maybe don't get weird about it. I'm absolutely going to get weird about it, he teased, his heart swelling. Scarlett rolled her eyes but didn't correct herself. That night, Megan received a text from Scarlett. Had a hot dog with Dad today. He's surprisingly normal, don't freak out. Megan sat on the couch, phone in hand, heart pounding. She stared at the message until the words blurred. The word Dad hit her harder than she expected. Caleb came in, holding 2 glasses of wine. Everything okay? Megan handed him the phone. Caleb read the text, exhaled slowly, then placed the phone on the table. She called him Dad. Megan nodded. Throat tight. Caleb rubbed her back. You knew this day might come. Yeah, Megan whispered, but I didn't think it would hurt this much. Megan Thompson stood in her living room, staring at the text from Scarlett for what felt like hours. Had a hot dog with Dad today. He's surprisingly normal. Don't freak out. The word Dad burned on the screen, mocking her carefully constructed world. For 19 years, she'd built a life where Adam Bell was nothing more than a cautionary tale, a man who had once broken her heart and walked away from a future he never knew existed. Now, with a single text message, that narrative cracked. Meg! Caleb's voice pulled her from her trance. Talk to me. She turned to face him. His brows were knitted in concern, his glass of wine untouched on the coffee table. She called him Dad, Megan said, voice hollow. She's opening the door to him. Caleb exhaled slowly and leaned forward, elbows on his knees. She's curious. That's natural. But what if he disappoints her? Megan's voice rose with emotion. What if he walks away again? What if he decides she doesn't fit into his perfect, polished world? Caleb reached for her hand. Scarlett's stronger than you think. She got that from you. Megan squeezed his hand but didn't respond. Her mind raced with memories of Adam, his laughter during their early dates, the sharpness of his words when he ended things. The years de sofrimento silencioso en cuanto criava Scarlett sozinha. I need to talk to him, ella disse finalmente. Caleb hesitated, then nodded. Do you want me to go with you? Megan shook a cabeza. This is something I need to handle on my own. Adam Bell sat in his hotel suite, staring at the city lights through the window. His phone was on the table beside him, Scarlett's name highlighted in the recent messages. They had texted back and forth earlier. Nothing profound, just jokes about how her professor at Parsons had compared one of her designs to rebellious street poetry. She'd responded with a laughing emoji and added, Guess I inherited your stubbornness. The thought warmed him. For years, he believed his legacy was measured in hotels, financial deals, and social status. Now, he realized that his true legacy was a 19-year-old with auburn hair and sharp wit, and she was giving him a chance. Tentatively, cautiously, but a chance nonetheless, a knock at the door startled him. He checked his watch. It was almost 10 p.m., too late for staff. Frowning, he crossed the room and opened the door. Megan stood there, his breath caught in his throat. She looked different from the woman he remembered. More poised, more polished, but the fire in her eyes was the same. She wore dark jeans and a tailored black coat, hair pulled back into a low bun. Can we talk? She asked. Of course, Adam said, stepping aside. She walked into the suite, her heels clicking against the marble floor, the door closed with a quiet thud. Sealing them in, Adam resisted the urge to straighten his tie, a nervous habit from a life lived in boardrooms. "Scarlett told me she's been seeing you," Megan began, arms crossed. "She said she called you Dad." Adam nodded, his heart clenching. "Yeah, she slipped up, I think. Tried to act like it was no big deal." "That's a big deal for her," Megan said. "Scarlett doesn't let people in easily. She's cautious. She learned that from me." Adam leaned against the back of the sofa. "I'm not here to hurt her, Megan. I know I screwed up with you. I live with that regret every day. But with Scarlett, I want to do this right." Megan's eyes softened for a fraction of a second before hardening again. "You don't get to decide what right looks like now? You missed 19 years? You don't know her favorite movie or what she eats when she's stressed? You weren't there when she had pneumonia at 3, or when she fell off her bike and broke her wrist at 7? Adam rubbed his temples. "I know, and I can't fix that. But I can be here now." Megan paced the room, her frustration palpable. "Adam, she's not some business venture you can throw money at. She's not a deal to close." "That's not what I'm doing," he said, voice rising slightly. "I know money doesn't fix this. I'm not trying to buy her. I'm just showing up." Megan stopped pacing, her eyes locked on his. "Showing up," she repeated. "Now, after all this time." Adam exhaled and ran a hand through his hair. "I know how it looks. I know you think I'll disappear when it gets hard, but I won't. I'm here because I can't ignore the fact that I have a daughter, and because I can't live with myself if I walk away again." Megan's lips trembled. The walls she'd spent years building were cracking, and she hated it. She remembered the nights correndo sozinha, segurando Scarlett e prometendo que jamais permitiria que Adam Bell machucasse sua filha. Agora, ali estava ele, dizendo que queria fazer parte daquela vida. "I don't trust you," she whispered. "I don't blame you," Adam said. "But trust me or not, I'm staying." Megan turned toward the door, but hesitated with her hand on the handle. "Scarlett thinks you hung the moon after only a few conversations," ela diz. "Sem olhar para trás. If you hurt her, Adam, there won't be a second chance." The door closed softly behind her. Adam stood in the silence, the weight of her warning settling in his chest. He wouldn't hurt Scarlett. He couldn't. But he knew he was also fighting against the shadows of his own past. Shadows Megan had every right to fear. Scarlett sat on her bed when Megan returned home. The sketchpad on her lap displayed half-finished dress designs, but her focus was elsewhere. "How did it go?" Scarlett asked without looking up. Megan sighed, hanging her coat on the back of a chair. "We talked, and he says he's here to stay." Scarlett bit her lip. "Do you believe him?" Megan hesitated. "I don't know. People don't change easily, but he seems sincere." Scarlett set the sketchpad aside. "I think he is." Megan sat beside her daughter. "Just promise me you'll be careful, okay? Give him time to prove himself before you let him in completely." Scarlett leaned into her mother's side. "I will. But Mom..." "Yeah." Scarlett hesitated. "I want to get to know him. I want to understand that part of me." Megan kissed the top of her daughter's head. "I know, sweetheart. And no matter what happens, I'm here." Adam spent the next morning sitting on a park bench across from Scarlett Designs, watching the world go by. He was about to leave when Megan emerged from the building. She stopped when she saw him. "You're still here," she said, surprised. "I told you," Adam said, standing. "I'm not going anywhere." Megan stared at him for a long moment, then gave a small nod before walking away. Adam watched her go, hope flickering in his chest. One step at a time. That was all he needed. Adam Bell stood on the sidewalk across from Scarlett Designs, hands deep in his coat pockets. As the crisp autumn wind whipped through the streets of Soho, the boutique's window display featured mannequins dressed in sleek, elegant pieces, designs that carried Megan's understated sophistication and Scarlett's youthful edge. He studied the sign painted on the glass. Scarlett Designs. Timeless elegance with a modern twist. His chest tightened with pride and regret. Pride for what they had built without him. Regret for not having been there to witness it. A soft chime drew his attention as the boutique door opened. Scarlett stepped out, her auburn hair glowing under the morning sunlight. She wore ripped jeans, a faded hoodie, and oversized sunglasses balanced atop her head. Adam straightened instinctively. "Morning," he called. Scarlett stopped mid-step and squinted across the street. Recognition dawned, and her lips curved into a small, guarded smile. "You're early," she said as she crossed to meet him. "You said 10. It's 9:45. Early is better than late, right?" Adam replied. Scarlett gave a half shrug. "Depends. In fashion, if you're early, you're desperate. If you're late, you're important," she smirked. "I guess you missed the memo." "Noted," Adam said with a laugh. "So, what's the plan today? You mentioned a fabric market." "Yeah, Mom always buys from the same suppliers, but I want to explore new ones. See if we can find fresh textures, better prices, but..." Scarlett hesitated. "It's a bit of a trek. You sure you want to come?" Adam smiled. "Scarlett, you could say we're going to a cave to look at rocks and I'd still go, lead the way." The fabric market was a sensory overload. Bolts of cloth in every imaginable color, the hum of sewing machines from nearby shops, and vendors calling out prices with practiced enthusiasm. Scarlett wove through the maze of stalls with purpose, occasionally stopping to run her fingers over velvet, silk, or wool. Adam followed, trying to keep up with her rapid assessments. "What are you looking for exactly?" he asked. "Textures that tell a story," Scarlett said without turning. "Like this." She paused at a bolt of deep emerald satin and ran her hand along its surface. "Feel it," Adam obeyed, surprised by the cool, smooth texture beneath his fingers. "It's nice," Scarlett grinned. "Nice. That's the best you can do. This feels like moonlight on water. It screams evening gala with a twist." "Moonlight on water, huh?" Adam said, impressed. "Sounds like you inherited more than just my stubbornness." Scarlett's eyes twinkled. "Maybe Mom says creativity skips generations, though. So maybe it's all her." Adam laughed, but felt the familiar pang of guilt at the mention of Megan. "Your mom's got a gift," he said softly. "She always did." Scarlett's smile faltered. "Yeah, she's kind of worried about all this, you know." Adam's stomach turned. "About me?" Scarlett nodded. "She doesn't say it outright, but I can tell. She thinks you're gonna disappear or mess with my head or, I don't know, break my heart." Adam swallowed hard. "I don't blame her. I broke her heart once. I don't plan on doing the same to you." Scarlett studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Then she gave a curt nod and turned back to the fabric selection. "We'll see," she murmured. Later that evening, Megan sat alone at the kitchen table, a cup of tea cooling in front of her. Scarlett had texted her earlier. "Spent the day with Dad at the market. He didn't embarrass me too much." Megan had stared at the words for minutes before replying with a simple, "That's good, sweetheart." Caleb appeared in the doorway. "You're brooding again," he said, sitting across from her. Megan rubbed her forehead. It's hard, seeing her connect with him, watching her give him a chance when I spent years protecting her from the idea of him." "You protected her from the old Adam," Caleb said gently. "But maybe this version deserves a shot." Megan gave a short laugh. "He's still Adam Bell, the man who humiliated me in front of his friends, who made me feel like I was nothing." Caleb reached for her hand. "And yet you became everything without him. That strength didn't come from nowhere, Meg." Megan squeezed his hand but said nothing. The shadows of the past refused to loosen their grip. The following week, Adam met Scarlett at Central Park for another walk. The air had turned colder, and fallen leaves crunched beneath their feet. They grabbed hot chocolate from a cart and strolled in silence for a while. "Why did you really leave Mom?" Scarlett asked abruptly. Adam nearly choked on his drink. "That's not an easy answer." "Try me," Scarlett said, voice even. Adam exhaled slowly. "Because I was a coward. I cared too much about what other people thought. I was scared that being with your mom would make me look weak or less than. I was stupid enough to believe that mattered more than love." Scarlett nodded, though her eyes remained distant. "And now I know that I walked away from the best thing that ever happened to me, and I've regretted it ever since." Scarlett tossed a pebble into the pond. "Mom cried a lot when I was little," she said softly. "She tried to hide it, but I heard her sometimes. She always told me we were better off without you." Adam's throat tightened. She had every reason to say that, and maybe she was right. But I'm here now, and I'll be here tomorrow, and the day after that, I won't run again. Scarlett looked at him then, really looked at him, as if searching for cracks in his resolve. Finally, she gave a small nod. "Okay," she said. We'll see. The next morning, Megan was unlocking the door to the boutique when she saw Adam waiting on the sidewalk. He wore jeans, a navy sweater, and an expression she couldn't decipher. "What are you doing here?" she asked, heart pounding. "I wanted to talk to you," Adam said. "About Scarlett, about us, about everything." Megan hesitated, then stepped inside, leaving the door open behind her. Adam followed. Inside, the air smelled of fabric and fresh coffee. Megan crossed her arms. "Talk." "I know you're worried," Adam began. "You think I'm going to let her down? That I'm still the same shallow guy you left behind in Chicago?" Megan's jaw tightened. "Aren't you?" Adam stepped closer, his eyes locked on hers. "No, I'm not. And I get why you don't believe me. I wouldn't either. But I'm here. I'm trying. I've lost 20 years of her life. I'm not losing the rest." Megan's breath caught in her throat, the intensity in his voice, the vulnerability. It wasn't the Adam Bell she remembered. "She's fragile, Adam," she said. "She hides it well, but she feels everything deeply. If you leave..." "I won't," Adam interrupted. "I swear, Megan, I won't leave." They stood there in silence, memories and unspoken fears swirling between them. Finally, Megan sighed and ran a hand through her hair. "I don't know if I believe in second chances, Elodie, but she does. Don't make me regret letting her try." Adam's voice was steady. "I won't." As he left the boutique, Megan collapsed onto a chair, her heart racing. The past had returned, whether she wanted it or not. And this time, it had a name. Adam Bell. The evening sky painted New York City in hues of orange and crimson. As Adam Bell stood outside Scarlett Designs once again, the cool air carried the faint scent of roasted chestnuts from a nearby vendor, but he barely noticed. His thoughts swirled with Megan's last words. "I don't know if I believe in second chances." But she does. Don't make me regret letting her try. The weight of that trust felt heavier than any deal he'd ever closed. The stakes weren't financial. They were personal, raw, human, and terrifying. He was no longer negotiating boardroom contracts. He was negotiating for a place in the lives of the two people he should have cherished from the start. His phone buzzed in his coat pocket. Scarlett's name flashed across the screen. "Scarlett, pizza night. I know a place that puts honey on the crust. Sounds weird, but it's amazing. You in?" Adam's lips curved into a smile. "Adam, honey on pizza sounds like a crime, but I'm in." The response came immediately. "Be there in 20. Bring your weird dad jokes." His heart skipped a beat at the word dad. She used it casually now, more often than not. And each time, it landed with a mixture of joy and disbelief. They met at a tiny pizza joint in the East Village. It was small, noisy, and nothing like the polished restaurants Adam usually frequented. But Scarlett greeted the staff like family and ordered without looking at the menu. "So," she said after taking a bite of her honey-drizzled slice, "did you practice your dad jokes like I told you?" Adam wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Oh, I came prepared. What's a skeleton's least favorite room?" Scarlett tilted her head, amused. "I don't know, what?" "The living room." She groaned and dropped her head into her hands. "That was awful. But you laughed." "No, I cringed." "Same thing," Adam said, smiling. Scarlett shook her head, but the laughter in her eyes betrayed her. "You're so lucky I decided to give you a chance," she said, pointing her pizza slice at him. "I know," Adam agreed softly. "I really do." The mood shifted subtly with those words. Scarlett lowered her slice and sat back. "You know, when Mom first told me about you, I imagined someone different. Different how? Colder?" Scarlett said after a moment. "Like, all business, a guy in a suit who talks about profits and tax write-offs, but you're kinda normal." Adam smiled. "Don't spread that around, it'll ruin my reputation." Scarlett smirked, but her expression turned more serious. "Mom's scared though, I can tell." Adam sobered. "Yeah, I know. She has every right to be. Do you still care about her?" Adam hesitated. The truth sat heavy in his chest. "I'll always care about your mom. She gave me you, and she's remarkable." Scarlett's eyes softened. "Yeah, she is." Adam drummed his fingers on the table. "You know, I'm proud of you. Scarlett, you're smart, creative, and tougher than I ever was at your age." Scarlett ducked her head, cheeks flushing slightly. "Thanks, I think." "No, really," Adam pressed. "I've met hundreds of so-called brilliant people, but you've got something special." Scarlett twirled her straw around her soda. "I guess I get that from Mom." Adam opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. She wasn't wrong. Later that night, Scarlett flopped onto the couch at home, tossing her phone beside her. Megan was folding laundry at the dining table and shot her a curious glance. "Good night," Megan asked. Scarlett grinned. "Yeah, we had pizza, and he told this terrible skeleton joke that I can't get out of my head." Megan gave a small smile but said nothing. Scarlett sat up. "Okay, Mom, what's going on? You've been weird about this whole dad thing since day one." Megan set down a t-shirt and sighed. "I'm just adjusting. It's strange, seeing you connect with someone I spent so long trying to forget." Scarlett fiddled with a loose thread on her hoodie. "He's not who you remember. I mean, yeah, he's awkward sometimes and his jokes are awful, but he's trying, really trying." "I know," Megan said, voice soft. "But people don't always stay the way they pretend to be." Scarlett frowned. "What if he's not pretending?" Megan didn't answer. Adam's world shifted as his relationship with Scarlett deepened. They met regularly, at the park, the café, or her favorite thrift shop. They swapped stories about life, fashion, and the weird quirks they discovered they shared. The same obsessive need to organize bookshelves, the same aversion to mayonnaise, the same dry sense of humor. But every time he tried to broach the subject of Megan or the past, Scarlett tensed and changed the subject. Adam didn't push. He knew trust. Once broken, couldn't be rushed. 2 weeks later, Adam arrived at Scarlett Designs unannounced. Megan was at the counter, checking inventory. She looked up, eyes wary when she saw him. "Adam," she said, setting down the clipboard. "What are you doing here?" "I needed to talk to you," he said. "About Scarlett." "About us." Megan's jaw tightened. "There is no us anymore." "I know," Adam said quickly. "I get it, but I can't keep pretending like seeing you doesn't stir something in me." Megan's eyes flashed. "Don't do this, Adam." "Why not?" he asked, stepping closer. "We share a daughter, we share a past, and whether you like it or not, we still have a connection." Megan folded her arms, trying to appear unaffected. "That connection died in Chicago when you told me I wasn't good enough." Adam winced. "You're right. I was an idiot back then, but I've changed." Megan shook her head. "People don't change that much, Adam. Not deep down." "I have," he insisted. "Scarlett sees it. Why can't you?" Megan's breath caught in her throat, the intensity in his gaze, the vulnerability. It was unfamiliar, unsettling. For a moment, she was 22 again, standing in a rain-soaked street, heartbroken and humiliated. The memory tightened around her chest. "Because," she whispered, "I don't know if I can survive letting you in again." Adam stepped back, the pain in her voice hitting like a physical blow. "I'm not asking you to let me in," he said softly. "I'm asking you to see who I am now, not who I was." Megan turned away, pretending to adjust a dress on a mannequin. "I can't," she said. "Not yet." Adam hesitated, then nodded, defeated. "Okay, I'll wait." He left the boutique, the bell over the door jingling softly. Megan leaned against the counter, her heart racing. Scarlett found her mother there an hour later, still gripping the edge of the counter. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing," Megan said. "Just old ghosts?" Scarlett tilted her head. "You still love him, don't you?" Megan opened her mouth to deny it, but faltered. The truth lay too close to the surface. "It doesn't matter," she said. "Love doesn't erase the past." Scarlett's lips pressed together. "Maybe not," she said. "But maybe it's a start." Megan closed her eyes. Torn between fear and the faint whisper of hope she'd sworn never to feel again, the late autumn wind whispered through the streets of Soho, scattering brittle leaves across the pavement, as Megan Thompson stood behind the counter of Scarlett Designs. The boutique was quiet. The usual bustle of clients had slowed with the change in seasons. She traced the edge of a fabric swatch absent-mindedly, her thoughts far from the inventory in front of her. Adam's words echoed in her mind. "I'm not asking you to let me in. I'm asking you to see who I am now." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But how could she? The scars he'd left ran too deep. His pride had once crushed her spirit. His absence had forced her to build an entirely new life. Now here he was again, reappearing after all these years, not just as a man from her past, but as Scarlett's father. The dynamic shifted everything she'd fought to control. The chime above the door startled her. She looked up, expecting a customer. Instead, Scarlett stood there, a takeout bag in one hand, 2 cups balanced precariously in the other. "Hey, Mom," Scarlett said, kicking the door shut with her foot. "Lunch delivery. Figured you'd forget to eat again." Megan smiled despite the heaviness in her chest. "You know me too well." Scarlett set the food on the counter and perched on a nearby stool. "So, how are you holding up?" Megan gave a nonchalant shrug. "I'm fine." Scarlett arched a brow. "Liar. You've been acting weird since you saw Dad." Megan froze at the word. "You call him that so easily now." Scarlett hesitated. "It just happened. I didn't plan it. It felt right." Megan's heart clenched. "I know, and I get it, I really do, but it's hard for me." Scarlett stirred her iced tea with her straw. "I get that, I do. But Mom, he's different. He listens. He doesn't act like a rich jerk, I swear. He even sat through an entire lecture about fabric dye techniques without checking his phone once." Megan allowed herself a small smile. "That does sound like torture for him." "It was," Scarlett said with a laugh. "But he stayed because I asked him to." She paused, then added softly, "He really cares." Megan sighed and squeezed Scarlett's hand. "I hope you're right." Across town, Adam sat in his hotel suite, flipping through the digital portfolio Scarlett had sent him the night before. Her designs were impressive, bold yet elegant, modern yet timeless. He could see Megan's influence in the lines, but the originality was all Scarlett. He was midway through an intricate sketch of a backless evening gown when his phone buzzed. "Scarlett, can we meet at the café on 5th? Need your opinion on something?" Adam's heart lifted. "Absolutely. See you in 30. The café was a cozy, dimly lit spot tucked between high-end boutiques. Adam arrived early and claimed a corner table. When Scarlett entered, she waved, 2 sketchbooks clutched to her chest. "Okay," she said, sliding into the chair across from him. "Honest opinions only. I'm submitting these to a design competition at Parsons, and I need brutal feedback." Adam grinned. "Brutal is my specialty." Scarlett opened the first sketchbook, and together they flipped through her ideas. She explained each design with enthusiasm, describing the inspiration behind every stitch and pattern. "This one," Adam said, tapping a sketch of a midnight blue dress with asymmetrical sleeves. "It's stunning. Classic but edgy." Scarlett beamed. "I thought so too, but Mom said it might be too risky for the judges." "Maybe, or maybe it's exactly what makes it memorable." Scarlett nodded, then hesitated. "She worries a lot, about you." Adam leaned back. "Yeah, I know, and she should. I gave her every reason not to trust me. She still cares, though," Scarlett said, watching him carefully. Adam's pulse quickened. "You think so?" Scarlett shrugged. "She wouldn't be this stressed if she didn't." Adam ran a hand through his hair. "I'm trying, Scar. I really am." "I know," she said softly. "So, what happened back then? Why did you push her away?" Adam stared at the table. "I was an idiot. I let pride and appearances control me. I thought love made me weak," he sighed. "But being without her, and without you, was the real weakness. I just didn't realize it until it was too late." Scarlett was quiet for a moment. "You should tell her that." Adam's laugh was bitter. "She wouldn't believe me." "Maybe," Scarlett said, "but you owe it to her to try." That night, Adam stood outside Megan's apartment building. He clutched a bouquet of white lilies, her favorite. If memory served, doubt gnawed at him as he rang the buzzer. "Hello?" Megan's voice crackled through the speaker. "It's Adam," he said. I was hoping we could talk." A long pause followed. Adam's chest tightened. Then the buzzer sounded, unlocking the door. He took the elevator up to the 3rd floor, heart hammering with each passing second. When Megan opened the door, she wore yoga pants and a loose sweater, her hair falling in waves over her shoulders. Her eyes landed on the flowers and narrowed. "Bribery?" she asked. "Maybe," Adam admitted, offering a sheepish smile. Megan sighed but stepped aside. "But Letting him in, he handed her the lilies, and she placed them on the kitchen counter. "Okay," she said, folding her arms. "Talk." Adam rubbed his palms together. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about trust. And I get it. I destroyed it. But I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere." Megan's jaw tightened. "You say that now, but when things get hard, I stay," Adam said firmly. "That's the difference. I stayed when Scarlett dragged me to a 3-hour fabric lecture. I stayed when she asked me hard questions about why I left you. And I'm standing here now, in your apartment, hoping you'll give me a chance to prove that I've changed." Megan turned away, staring at the lilies. "Why now, Adam? Why after all these years?" "Because I found out I had a daughter," he said, voice breaking. "And when I met her, I realized how much I'd missed, and how much I didn't want to miss anything else. Not with her. Not with you." He stepped closer. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to believe that I'm trying to be better, for her and for you." Tears filled Megan's eyes, but she blinked them away. "I don't know if I can," she whispered. Adam gently took her hand. "Then let me show you." For the first time in years, Megan didn't pull away. Scarlett returned home an hour later and found her mother sitting on the couch with the lilies on the coffee table. "Mom?" she asked. Megan looked up, eyes glistening. "He came by, we talked." Scarlett's heart raced. "And," Megan exhaled, "and I'm scared, but maybe it's time to stop running from the past." Scarlett sat beside her, squeezing her hand. "I think that's a good call," she said softly. Outside, the wind rattled the windows, but inside, hope stirred for the first time in years. The early morning sun cast soft, golden beams through the kitchen window as Megan Thompson stirred cream into her coffee. The spoon clinked softly against the porcelain cup, a steady rhythm that did little to soothe the storm brewing inside her. Across the table, Scarlett scrolled through her phone, occasionally glancing up to steal a curious look at her mother. "You're quieter than usual," Scarlett said, setting the phone down. "Something wrong?" Megan sighed, swirling the coffee absently. "No, just thinking." "About Dad?" Scarlett asked. Leaning forward, Megan winced at how naturally the word Dad now rolled off Scarlett's tongue. "Yeah," she admitted. "He came by last night." Scarlett's eyes lit up with interest. "I know," she said, grinning. "He texted me after he left, said it was complicated." Megan arched an eyebrow. "He said that?" "Yup." Scarlett toyed with her bracelet. "So, is it complicated?" Megan set the cup down and rubbed her temples. "He says he's changed, that he's trying, and I believe that he wants to be here for you." Scarlett tilted her head. "But you don't believe he can be here for you?" Megan gave a soft laugh. "You're too smart for your own good. You know, genetics," Scarlett said with a smug grin. Megan's smile faded. "It's hard to trust someone who once broke you so completely." Scarlett reached across the table and squeezed her mother's hand. "Maybe he deserves the chance to show you that he won't break you again." Megan swallowed hard and nodded. Though the fear still coiled in her chest, Adam Bell stood at his hotel room window, coffee in hand, watching the morning traffic weave through the streets below. He hadn't slept much after leaving Megan's apartment the night before. His mind was tangled in memories of the past and the fragile hope he'd seen flicker in Megan's eyes. His phone vibrated on the nightstand. A message from Scarlett. "Scarlett, Mom's nervous, but she's thinking about it. Don't screw it up, okay?" Adam chuckled softly and typed back. "Adam, I'll do my best. No screw-ups, got it?" He tossed the phone onto the bed and ran a hand through his hair. He needed a plan. A way to prove to Megan that this time, he wasn't the same man who had thrown away their love for the sake of social appearances. He paced the room, his mind racing through ideas until an old memory surfaced. The sketchbook Megan always carried when they were dating. She'd once dreamt of opening her own boutique, long before Scarlett was born. And now she has. Adam smiled to himself. If Megan couldn't trust words, maybe actions would speak louder. 2 weeks later, Megan arrived at Scarlett Designs early to finalize preparations for a private showcase she'd scheduled for a group of high-end clients. Scarlett was already there, steaming a silk dress. "You're here early," Megan said, surprised. Scarlett shrugged. "Couldn't sleep. Nervous about tonight." Megan smiled. "You'll do great. Our designs speak for themselves." The doorbell chimed. and Megan turned. The delivery driver stood there holding a clipboard. "Delivery for Megan Thompson," the man said. Megan frowned. "I didn't order anything." The driver shrugged. "It's all paid for. Need a signature." Megan hesitated, then signed the form. The man handed her a thick envelope. She opened it and unfolded a single piece of paper. Her breath caught as she read the printed words, "Deed of ownership. Scarlet Designs Building. Transferred to Megan Thompson." Her heart stopped. What is this?" she whispered. Scarlett peered over her shoulder. "Wait, is that the deed to our store?" Megan's hands trembled. The bottom of the page held a handwritten note. "Megan, I know you built this business on your own. I just wanted to make sure you always had a place to keep building. No strings attached. Adam." Megan's knees wobbled, and she gripped the counter for support. "Did you know about this?" she asked Scarlett. Scarlett shook her head, eyes wide. "No, I mean, he said he wanted to show you he was serious. But I didn't know it was this." Megan sat heavily in a chair, staring at the paper. Adam had bought the building, not as a show of power or control, but to give her security, after years of struggling to pay rent, of worrying about whether the landlord would sell to developers. The boutique was now hers. Her phone vibrated in her pocket. A message from Adam. "Adam, sorry if I crossed a line. I just wanted you to feel safe. Let me know if I made a mistake." Megan blinked back tears. The old Adam would have used this as leverage. The new Adam was scared he'd overstepped. She stood abruptly. "I need to talk to him." Scarlett smiled. "Yeah, you do." Adam was sitting in his hotel suite, rereading Megan's text history for the 10th time, when a knock at the door startled him. He opened it to find her standing there, cheeks flushed from the cold, the deed still in her hand. "You bought my building," she said without preamble. Adam nodded cautiously. "Yeah, I did." "Why?" "Because it's yours," he said. "You built that business from nothing. I just made sure no one could take it from you. I didn't do it to control anything, Megan. I swear." She stared at him, eyes glistening. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," Adam said softly. "But I wanted to. For you, for Scarlett, for the life you built without me." Megan's breath hitched. "This is so unlike you." Adam smiled faintly. "That's kind of the point." They stood there in silence until Megan stepped forward. "I don't know if this means I trust you," she said. "But it's a start." Adam reached out, hesitated, then gently clasped her hand. "That's all I need," he whispered. That night, during the showcase at Scarlet Designs, Megan stood beside Scarlett, greeting clients and explaining the inspiration behind each piece. Across the room, Adam mingled quietly, avoiding the spotlight. Caleb arrived halfway through the event, his smile faltering when he saw Adam. He walked over to Megan and leaned in. "He's here," he said. "I know," Megan said softly. Caleb's jaw tightened. "You're really letting him back in?" Megan met his gaze. "He's Scarlett's father, Caleb. And maybe he's not the man I thought he was." Caleb stepped back, hurt flickering in his eyes. "Just don't forget who was here when he wasn't." Megan's heart ached as Caleb turned and left. Adam saw the exchange from across the room but said nothing. When Megan rejoined him later, he handed her a glass of champagne. "Trouble?" he asked softly. "Complicated," she said. Adam smiled. "Seems to be a theme with us." Megan chuckled, the sound lightening the tension between them. As they stood there, Scarlett approached, eyes shining. "Mom, we just got the first pre-order for the midnight blue dress. A boutique in LA wants a whole collection." Megan's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Scarlett nodded. "Dead serious." Adam raised his glass. "To the future of Scarlet Designs," he said. Megan and Scarlett clinked their glasses with his. For the first time in years, Megan felt the weight of the past loosen its grip. But across town, Caleb Edwards sat in a bar nursing a drink. His jaw tight and his mind racing. Adam Bell was back, and Caleb wasn't about to let him win so easily. The crisp winter air bit at Adam Bell's cheeks as he stepped out of Scarlet Designs late that evening. The boutique's interior lights glowed behind him, casting soft shadows onto the sidewalk. Through the glass, he could still see Megan and Scarlett laughing as they wrapped up the final details from the successful showcase. Adam lingered for a moment, hands deep in his coat pockets, taking in the image of something he'd never thought he'd witness. A glimpse of family, of belonging. His phone buzzed. Dragging him from the moment, he pulled it out and saw a message from Olivia. His assistant, Olivia. Reminder, Board wants a decision about the European expansion. They expect you at the shareholder meeting next week in Chicago. Adam exhaled slowly. Chicago, the city where everything had started and ended so many years ago. He hadn't been back in over a decade. The thought of returning stirred old memories, bitter and sharp. But the bigger worry was leaving New York now. Not when things with Scarlett were finally stabilizing. Not when Megan had begun cautiously to let down her guard. Adam, I'll get back to you in the morning. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and crossed the street toward his hotel. But just as he reached the corner, he noticed a figure leaning against a lamppost watching the boutique. Adam's steps slowed. The man was tall, dressed in a dark coat, and even in the dim light, the set of his jaw was familiar. Caleb Edwards. Adam stopped a few feet away. Long night? He asked casually. Caleb straightened. Could say the same about you. Just helping Megan and Scarlett with the showcase, Adam said. Caleb's lips twisted into a smirk. Yeah, I heard. Big success, congrats. Adam raised an eyebrow. You sound less than thrilled. Caleb pushed off the lamppost and took a step closer. I've been here for years, Adam, watching out for them, supporting them when you were nowhere. And now you waltz in and expect everything to fall into place, like some hero who just discovered he cares. Adam's jaw clenched. I don't expect anything. I'm here because Scarlett deserves to know me. And because Megan deserves more than the ghost of who I was. Caleb gave a hollow laugh. You think you've changed, but trust me, people like you don't change. You get bored, or something more interesting comes along, and when it does, you'll leave them again. Adam's hands fisted in his coat pockets. I'm not going anywhere. Caleb stepped closer, voice low. We'll see about that. The next morning, Adam sat at the small table by his hotel room window, sipping black coffee and staring at his phone. The meeting in Chicago loomed, and Caleb's words echoed in his mind. You'll leave them again. Would Megan think the same if he left for even a few days? Would Scarlett? He opened his text messages and hovered over Megan's name before he could type. His phone rang. Scarlett? He answered immediately. Hey, kiddo, he said, forcing a lighter tone into his voice. Morning? Scarlett chirped. Mom's freaking out about the LA order. She says it's a good problem to have, but also might cause supply chain migraines. Adam laughed. Sounds like her. Yeah, anyway. Want to come help us figure it out later? Mom promised to bribe us with pastries. I'm in, Adam said. See you soon. When he arrived at the boutique, Megan stood by the sewing station, biting her lip as she studied fabric samples. Her hair was loosely tied back, a pen tucked behind her ear. The sight made Adam's heart ache with familiarity. Good morning, he said, stepping inside. Megan turned, startled. Oh, hey, didn't hear you come in. Scarlett appeared from the back. Okay, here's the deal, she said, waving a clipboard. The LA boutique wants 20 pieces in 6 weeks. Mom thinks it's impossible. I think we can do it if we find a second supplier. Adam grinned. Sounds like you're already running the place. Obviously, Scarlett said. So, you up for a supply chain brainstorm? Absolutely, Adam said, pulling up a chair. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of discussions, sketches, and supplier lists. Scarlett led most of the conversation, occasionally tossing sarcastic remarks Adam's way. Megan, meanwhile, observed quietly, her eyes softening whenever Adam encouraged Scarlett's ideas as the meeting wrapped up. Scarlett's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and groaned. Ugh, study group. Gotta go pretend I care about history. She hugged Megan, gave Adam a playful salute, and dashed out. The boutique grew quiet. Adam shifted awkwardly. She's amazing, he said. Megan smiled. Yeah, she is. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Megan broke it. So, Caleb mentioned he saw you last night. Adam's stomach tightened. Yeah, we had a little chat. Megan's eyes narrowed. He said you argued. We did. He thinks I'm going to hurt you and Scarlett. Megan sighed, running a hand through her hair. Caleb's been protective ever since he helped me start the business. He's like family. Yeah, Adam said. I get that, but it felt more personal than that. Megan hesitated. He had feelings for me once. Adam's pulse quickened. Once? She met his gaze. I never let it go anywhere. He knew I wasn't ready, and honestly, I'm still not sure what I'm ready for. Adam nodded slowly. I'm not pushing, I just want you to know I'm here for Scarlett. For you. For as long as you let me. Megan's lips parted as if to respond, but then her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and frowned. It's our supplier. Sorry, I need to take this. Adam gave a reassuring nod as she walked away, but the lingering tension in the air told him that Caleb's shadow hadn't left the room. That night, Adam was packing a small bag for his trip to Chicago when his phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Unknown. Leaving town already? I told you you'd walk away eventually. Some things never change. Adam stared at the screen. Anger rising, he tapped back a response. Adam, who is this? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No answer. Adam's gut told him the sender was Caleb, but confronting him wouldn't solve anything. Actions would. He had to go to Chicago for the meeting, but he would return. He owed that much to Scarlett. And to Megan. The next morning, Adam knocked on the door of Megan's apartment. She opened it, surprise flickering in her eyes. Adam, I need to go to Chicago for a couple of days, he said. Business meeting, but I'll be back. I just wanted you to hear that from me. Megan's lips twitched with an almost smile. You didn't need to tell me. Yes, I did, Adam said, because I promised I'd show up and I will. Megan nodded. Okay, safe travels. As Adam turned to leave, Megan called out, Adam. He looked back. Thank you for telling me. Adam smiled softly. I'll see you soon. As Adam boarded the plane to Chicago, Caleb Edwards sat in his car across from Megan's apartment, watching Adam disappear into the terminal. Caleb's fingers drummed on the steering wheel. He'd warned Megan once before. Adam Bell would leave, and now he had. All Caleb had to do was wait. The hum of the plane engines thrummed beneath Adam Bell as he stared out the window at the clouds stretching endlessly across the sky. The familiar ache of regret sat heavy in his chest. Chicago, the city where he'd once ruled with unchecked arrogance, where he'd humiliated Megan in a room full of people who didn't matter. And now he was going back. Not as the untouchable hotel magnate, but as a man trying to rewrite a broken legacy. He pulled out his phone and reread Scarlett's last text. Scarlett, good luck in Chicago. Don't let the bored people scare you and bring me a souvenir. Something cool, not a boring hotel pen. Adam smiled faintly and typed back, I'll find something, maybe a key to the city, as the plane began its descent. His thoughts shifted to Megan. The look in her eyes when he told her about the trip had been cautious, but not dismissive. That was progress. Just get through this meeting, he told himself, then go home. Because New York wasn't just a city anymore. It was where his daughter lived, and where Megan was beginning to let him in again. In New York, Megan Thompson stood in the boutique, rearranging a display of scarves. She adjusted each fold with mechanical precision, her mind far from the task. Her phone buzzed on the counter. Caleb, coffee later. She hesitated before replying, Sure, 3 p.m. at Perks. The last thing she needed was Caleb stirring up more negativity about Adam, but she owed him a conversation after their last tense exchange. Later, at the café, Caleb stirred his espresso with a deliberate slowness. His eyes, always sharp, studied Megan as she sipped her cappuccino. So, he's gone, Caleb said casually. Megan frowned. Adam had a meeting, he'll be back. Caleb's lips twitched into a half smile. That's what men like him say, until they don't come back. Megan set her cup down with more force than intended. What are you trying to do here, Caleb? Protect you, he said, leaning forward. And Scarlett, I've seen guys like Adam before. They drop in, make big promises, and then when things get messy, they disappear. He's done it once. He'll do it again. Megan's stomach churned with uncertainty. He's different this time. Maybe, Caleb said. Or maybe he's just bored of his old life and you're the shiny new distraction. Megan stood abruptly. Thanks for the coffee, but I don't need your warnings, as she walked away. Caleb called after her, voice low but sharp. When he leaves again, don't say I didn't warn you. The words lodged in her chest like ice. In Chicago, Adam sat in the boardroom of Bell Global Holdings, facing a semicircle of stern, middle-aged men. The agenda centered on expanding the company's presence in Europe, a project he'd once championed. Now, it felt like a distraction from what really mattered. "Mr. Bell," said Charles Monroe, the COO, "we need your signature to finalize the Paris deal." Adam hesitated. Signing meant committing to months of international travel, meetings in London, site inspections in Madrid, negotiations in Rome, time away from Scarlett, from Megan. "Let me think about it," Adam said. Monroe exchanged a knowing glance with the others. "We can't delay much longer, sir." Adam gave a tight nod. "I'll have an answer soon." He left the meeting with his mind spinning. Outside the office tower, he paused on the steps and pulled out his phone. He dialed Megan's number before doubt could stop him. She answered on the second ring. "Hey," she said, surprised. "Hey," Adam said, voice softer than usual. "Just wanted to hear your voice." Megan's heart stuttered. "Rough meeting." "Yeah, they want me to sign off on a European expansion. It would mean a lot of travel." Megan's fingers tightened around the phone. "What are you going to do?" Adam blew out a breath. "I don't know yet. I promised Scarlett I'd be here, and I promised you I wouldn't run again." Megan closed her eyes. "I guess you have to decide what matters more." "I already know," Adam said. "I just need to figure out how to make the board understand that." After they hung up, Megan sat on the couch, her thoughts tangled. Caleb's warnings echoed in her mind. What if Adam got swept up in his old world? What if he left again? Scarlett, meanwhile, paced the floor of her dorm room. Her roommate, Hannah, watched with mild amusement. "Relax," Hannah said. "It's just your dad." "Exactly," Scarlett snapped. "He's in Chicago, the city he swore he never wanted to go back to. What if he decides he likes it again? What if he forgets about me?" Hannah arched a brow. "He texts you like 20 times a day. He won't forget." "Yeah, well, people change their minds." Scarlett's phone buzzed. A text from Adam. "Adam, I told them I'm not interested in the European expansion. I'm coming home tomorrow. Get ready for your souvenir." Scarlett exhaled and showed Hannah the message. "See?" Hannah said. "You're not so forgettable." Scarlett grinned, relief flooding her veins. "Guess not." The next day, Adam landed at JFK and headed straight to Scarlett Designs. Megan was alone, pinning a hem on a mannequin. She straightened when he walked in, brushing her hair from her face. "You're back," she said, voice neutral. "I told you I would be," Adam said softly. Megan's gaze flicked to the clock. "The meeting. I told the board no. I'm staying here with Scarlett." "With whatever this is." He gestured vaguely between them. Megan's heart flipped. "That's a big decision." Adam smiled faintly. "So is letting me back into your life." She exhaled slowly. "I want to believe you." "Then let me show you," Adam said. He took a step closer. "Dinner, just us, no Scarlett. No business talk, just you and me." Megan hesitated. Then she smiled. "Okay, one dinner." That night, Caleb sat at his desk, scrolling through his phone, his eyes locked on an old photo of Megan and Scarlett at a company party years ago. He zoomed in on Megan's face, her laughter, her ease back then. He'd believed she would eventually see him as more than a friend. Now, Adam Bell was unraveling years of patient loyalty, with a few grand gestures and a charming smile. Caleb opened his laptop and logged into a private database he'd paid a hefty sum to access. He typed, Adam Bell, Financial Holdings. He scrolled until he found what he needed. Documents linking Adam's name to an offshore account. He smiled coldly and took a screenshot. Megan trusted him once. She won't make that mistake again. At the restaurant, Megan and Adam shared dessert, laughter softening the years of tension between them. "This feels surreal," Megan said. "In a good way?" Adam asked. "In a terrifying way," she admitted. Adam reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "We've both changed," he said. "Maybe it's time we let ourselves believe in that." Megan's smile wavered, but she didn't pull away. Outside the restaurant, across the street, Caleb Edwards watched them through narrowed eyes. He tucked his phone into his coat and turned away, a plan already forming in his mind. The glow of the city lights reflected off the wet pavement as Megan Thompson stepped out of the restaurant. Adam's hand resting lightly at the small of her back. The dinner had been unexpectedly easy, familiar, yet different. They'd laughed, shared stories, even debated the merits of pineapple on pizza without the usual guarded walls. But as they walked to the curb to hail a cab, the old ache stirred in Megan's chest, the fear of believing this could last. "Thanks for tonight," she said, turning to face Adam. "It was nice." "Nice," Adam teased. "I was aiming for unforgettable." Megan smiled softly. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves." Adam held the door open as she slid into the taxi. As she settled into the seat, her phone vibrated. She glanced at the screen. A message from Caleb. "Caleb, we need to talk urgent. Call me when you're alone." Her stomach twisted. She locked the screen and looked at Adam, who had just slid in beside her. "Everything okay?" he asked. "Yeah," she lied. "Just work stuff." Caleb paced his apartment, phone in hand. The documents were printed and spread across his dining table. Account statements, transfers, names, Bell Global Holdings, offshore subsidiaries. It was all here. Evidence, or at least enough to sow doubt. Megan would see what kind of man Adam really was. And when she did, she'd finally close that chapter forever. He hit dial. Megan answered on the second ring. "Caleb, what's going on?" "I need to see you," Caleb said, voice tight. "It's about Adam." Megan hesitated. "Caleb, Please, Meg. I swear this isn't jealousy. I found something. Something you need to see." Megan rubbed her forehead. "Okay, tomorrow morning, my office, early. The next morning." The next. Megan arrived at Scarlet Designs before dawn. Caleb was already there, waiting outside with a manila folder in hand. His eyes were shadowed with exhaustion. "Okay," Megan said, unlocking the door. "What's so important that it couldn't wait?" Inside, Caleb placed the folder on the counter and opened it. "I know you've been giving Adam a chance," he said, voice measured. "But before you go any further, you need to know the truth." Megan's gaze fell on the documents, bank statements, transfers, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. "What am I looking at?" she asked, pulse quickening. "Adam's financial activity," Caleb said. "These accounts are tied to shell companies. He's been funneling money through them for years, probably to avoid taxes, classic corporate maneuver. And guess what? One of these accounts was opened just 3 months ago, right before he showed up here." Megan's mouth went dry. "You think he came back because of this?" Caleb nodded. "It makes sense, doesn't it? He suddenly discovers he has a daughter, shows up all reformed. Meanwhile, he's using the company as cover. Maybe he's laundering money, or maybe he's using Scarlet Designs as part of a scheme." Megan stepped back, her heart racing. No, that doesn't make sense. He bought the building for us. He's been helping Scarlet with her designs. He wouldn't he?" Caleb interrupted. "He walked away from you once, lied about who you were, humiliated you, and now you think he suddenly became a saint." Megan's vision blurred with confusion. The past and present collided. The man who'd once scorned her was gone, wasn't he? Or had she been a fool to believe it? Caleb softened his tone. "I'm only telling you this because I care. I've always cared." Megan swallowed hard. "I need time to process this." Caleb placed a comforting hand on her arm. "Of course. Just be careful." That afternoon, Adam stopped by the boutique with coffee and croissants. Megan accepted the cup with a tight smile. "You okay?" Adam asked, immediately noticing the tension. "Yeah," she said, forcing cheerfulness. "Just tired." "Sure. Positive," Megan said. Adam didn't believe her, but he didn't push. Instead, he told her about his morning with Scarlett and their plans to attend a design expo next weekend. Megan nodded along, but her mind remained stuck on the documents. Every smile Adam gave her, every gentle touch, suddenly felt like part of an elaborate lie. That night, Megan sat in bed, laptop open. She searched the account numbers from Caleb's documents. They matched legitimate subsidiaries of Bell Global Holdings, but one name stood out. Scarlet Future LC. Her heart stuttered. Scarlet. He'd named a shell company after their daughter. She closed the laptop and buried her face in her hands. The next day, Scarlet burst into the apartment with excitement. "Mom, guess what? Dad said he's taking me to the Parsons Design Expo next weekend. He said it's like the Super Bowl of fashion." Megan's heart cracked. "Dad!" The word came so naturally to Scarlett now. "That sounds great, sweetheart," Megan said softly. "Yeah, it is. And guess what? He said maybe, just maybe, he'd help me pitch my own mini collection next year." Scarlett's eyes sparkled. "Can you imagine? Scarlett Designs Jr." Megan smiled weakly, but the words echoed ominously. Scarlett Designs Jr. And the shell company, Scarlett Future LLC, coincidence? Or something worse, the night before the expo. Megan paced the living room while Scarlett packed upstairs. Caleb's voice rang in her ears. "He's using your daughter, using your company." Unable to resist, she grabbed her phone and called Adam. He answered immediately. "Hey, Megan, what's up?" "We need to talk," she said, voice trembling. "Okay, about what?" "About the accounts, about Scarlett Future Else." A beat of silence. Then Adam's voice, low and careful. "Where did you hear about that?" Megan's heart plummeted. "So it's true." "It's not what you think," Adam said quickly. "Just let me explain." "You've been lying this whole time," Megan whispered. "No, I set that account up to invest in Scarlett's future designs, to help her launch her own line someday." Megan shook her head, tears burning her eyes. "That's convenient. Megan, please, I swear." She hung up. The next morning, Adam waited outside the boutique, suitcase in hand for the trip to the expo. When Megan and Scarlett arrived, Megan's expression was cold, distant. "Morning," Adam greeted cautiously. "Morning." "Dad," Scarlett said, hugging him. Megan handed Scarlett her suitcase and watched as she loaded it into the car. Then she turned to Adam. "If you hurt her," Megan said, voice like ice, "you'll regret it." Adam's face fell. "Megan, just go." Adam opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. Instead, he nodded and climbed into the car with Scarlett. As the car pulled away, Megan wrapped her arms around herself, shivering. Despite the sunshine, across the street, Caleb watched from his parked car, a satisfied smile curling his lips. Megan Thompson stood at the window of her apartment, arms wrapped tightly around herself as the city lights shimmered like distant stars. The taxi carrying Adam and Scarlett had disappeared from view hours ago, but the hollow ache in her chest remained. The documents Caleb had shown her haunted her. The words Scarlett Future LC blared in her mind like a siren. Had she misjudged Adam again? Had she let herself believe, for the second time, that a man like him could change? Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She walked over and saw a message from Caleb. "Caleb, I'm here if you need me. Just say the word." Megan's thumb hovered over the keyboard. Caleb had been there for her during the worst moments of her life, but something about the intensity of his warnings felt off. Instead of replying, she opened her laptop and logged into her business accounts. She searched for any link to Scarlett Future LC. After 30 minutes of digging, she found it. A dormant holding company with no activity, no transactions, no withdrawals, nothing suspicious. Her breath caught. If Adam were using it for some scheme, wouldn't there be activity? The first crack of doubt about Caleb's accusations formed. The next morning, Scarlett and Adam arrived at the Parsons Design Expo, a bustling, high-energy event teeming with students, professors, and industry professionals. Scarlett's eyes sparkled as she took it all in. Fabric swatches, experimental designs, interactive workshops. "This is amazing," she said, clutching Adam's arm. Adam smiled despite the tension gripping his chest. Megan's cold warning the day before had rattled him. The mention of the account had been too specific to be a coincidence. Someone had fed her that information. "Come on," Adam said, masking his unease. "Let's check out the textile tech booth." They spent hours moving through exhibits, Scarlett absorbing every detail with wide-eyed wonder. But Adam's mind stayed on Megan, on Caleb, and on the question that wouldn't leave him. Who gave her those documents? Back in Soho, Megan was reviewing invoices at the boutique when the doorbell chimed. She looked up and saw Caleb walk in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "I figured you'd be working," Caleb said, setting the cups down. "Thanks," Megan said, voice guarded. Caleb slid into the chair across from her. "How are you holding up?" Megan hesitated. Confused, Caleb leaned forward. "Megan, I know you want to believe he's changed, but guys like Adam, they don't change." He's a manipulator, a liar. Megan's chest tightened. I looked into the account, she said carefully. There's no activity, no money movement, nothing illegal. Caleb's expression flickered. Maybe you didn't look deep enough. I went through every line, it's empty. Caleb shifted in his seat. Give it time, he'll slip up. Megan's skin prickled. Where did you get those documents, Caleb? He hesitated. A contact in finance. Who? That doesn't matter, Caleb snapped. What matters is that I'm protecting you. Megan stood, her heart pounding. You're not protecting me. You're manipulating me. Caleb's eyes darkened. I'm doing what I should have done years ago. I've been here all along, Megan, not him. Me. Megan's hand shook as she pointed at the door. Get out. Caleb's jaw clenched. You're making a mistake. Out now. He stood slowly and left, slamming the door behind him. Megan collapsed into the chair, head spinning. She needed to warn Adam. At the expo, Scarlett stood in line for coffee, while Adam scrolled through his emails. His phone buzzed. Megan's name. He answered immediately. Megan. Adam, she said, voice trembling. Caleb's been lying. He gave me fake documents. He's obsessed. I think he might try something. Adam's pulse skyrocketed. Scarlett's here with me. We're fine. Be careful, Megan pleaded. Please. As Adam ended the call, dread coiled in his gut. He scanned the crowded expo hall. Scarlett, he called. No answer. He pushed through the crowd to the coffee stand. The barista shook her head. She was here a minute ago. A guy said he was her uncle and took her toward the back exit. Adam's heart stopped. Caleb, he whispered. Scarlett woke with a throbbing headache. The last thing she remembered was standing in line when Caleb appeared, smiling, saying her dad had sent him to get her. She'd followed him outside and then darkness. Now she was in a dimly lit room. Her hands and feet were tied to a chair. Panic surged through her veins. Hello, Scarlett, came Caleb's voice from the shadows. She twisted toward the sound. He stepped into view, eyes cold. Caleb, what the hell? She stammered. I'm doing this for your mom, Caleb said, crouching beside her. Your dad's a liar, a fraud. I'm going to prove it. And once your mom sees the truth, she'll thank me. Scarlett's stomach churned. You're insane. Caleb smiled faintly. No, I'm just the only one who really cares. He pulled out his phone and dialed. Adam's phone rang. Caleb's number. He answered on the first ring. Caleb, Adam growled. Where is she? Calm down, Adam, Caleb said smoothly. She's safe, for now. If you hurt her, hurting her, I'm not the villain here, you are, Caleb hissed. You waltzed in after 19 years and stole the life I built. Now you're going to pay. What do you want? Adam demanded. Come to Pier 17, alone, no police, or Scarlett pays the price. The line went dead. Adam sprinted toward the exit. Megan arrived at the expo minutes later, heart racing. She spotted Adam just as he jumped into a cab. Adam! She screamed. He heard her and waved frantically. Pier 17, Caleb's got Scarlett. Megan's blood turned to ice. She hailed another cab and followed. Pier 17 loomed dark and abandoned. Adam's car screeched to a halt. He bolted out, scanning the shadows. Caleb, he bellowed. Over here, Caleb's voice echoed. Adam turned. Caleb stood on the pier, Scarlett tied to a chair near the edge. The ropes cut into her wrists. Her eyes were wide with terror. Let her go, Adam said, advancing. Stay right there, Caleb roared, pulling a gun from his coat. You destroyed everything. I didn't destroy anything, Caleb, Adam said, voice low. You did, by letting your obsession take over. Shut up, Caleb shouted. He pointed the gun at Scarlett. You walk away, Adam. Leave New York. Forever. Or she dies. Adam's hands trembled. Okay, I'll leave. Just let her go. No, Scarlett screamed. Don't leave me. Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger. A sudden shout cut through the air. Drop the gun! Megan stood behind Caleb holding a metal pipe. He spun toward her. In that moment, Adam lunged, knocking the gun from Caleb's hand. The weapon clattered across the pier. They struggled, fists flying. Caleb broke free and charged at Megan without thinking. Megan swung the pipe. It struck Caleb's temple with a sickening crack. He staggered and collapsed. Adam scrambled to Scarlett, cutting the ropes. She sobbed as she fell into his arms. Megan dropped the pipe, trembling. Adam wrapped one arm around her and the other around Scarlett. Police sirens wailed in the distance. "It's over," Adam whispered. "We're safe." Megan clung to him, tears falling freely. Hours later, at the hospital, Scarlett slept in a chair while a nurse tended to her bruises. Adam sat beside Megan, their hands intertwined. "I almost believed him," Megan said, voice raw. "I almost let him tear us apart." Adam kissed her knuckles. "He preyed on your fear, but we're stronger than that." Megan rested her head on his shoulder. "I was wrong about you. You didn't run." Adam smiled softly. "I told you. I'm here to stay." Scarlett stirred, opened her eyes and whispered, "Dad." Adam kissed her forehead. "I'm here, sweetheart. Always." Megan squeezed his hand. The walls finally gone. Together they sat in silence, the weight of the past giving way to the promise of a new future.